An녕하세요. Seli Stewart. Hello, my name is Seli Stewart, or Sarah Stewart. I am originally from Muskogee, Oklahoma, and I am a Cherokee Nation citizen. When I originally moved back to Sallisaw, I had never been to Sequoia's cabin, and it was really surprising to me to know that this was here my whole childhood growing up, and I had never come to visit. So this was one of the first places that I came to see. And even though I've always known how to sew, I don't think I ever really connected that to being Cherokee until I came here and saw his spinning wheel, saw that, sewing is not just something that I've known how to do. This is something that I could also express my Cherokee culture through. When I first started researching them, one of the first things I saw was the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians had a video up of how to tie one. You can see it's kind of just like a really long pillowcase, and then you put it on and wrap it. And so seeing how to tie one, I instantly was like, I can sew that. So I just got down to sitting down and figuring out how to sew it.
A group of Cherokees went to Britain in the 1730s, and then again in 1760s. These chiefs visited Britain. During their stay, they were presented to King George. The Cherokees in their native attire, they had tattoos, and they were warriors. The king's ministers determined that they were too severe for old King George to countenance. A group had been there from the subcontinent, India, and the king's courtiers had taken them out of their attire and dressed them in court dress. So the Cherokees were dressed in that attire to be presented to the king. And so they continued to wear that attire. We know all that happened. Virginia Stroud, who was the first Miss Cherokee in modern times, she was doing some research. She found where the king's ministers had written to the people who were handling the Cherokees, who were their host, and said, by the way, when are you going to bring back all this attire that you carried off when you visited the court? And they wrote back and said, well, we'll bring it back in 2 or 3 weeks, but we won't be bringing back the turbans. The chiefs are very fond of them and intend on taking them home. All of that doesn't meet academic standards to publish it in an academic journal, because we need the notes, we need the information, and we don't have it. But that's where we think that Cherokees got hold of the turbans. And so that was in the 1760s. Dr. Dwayne King, his background was Cherokee historian. He said, we don't find the turban in paintings until the 1790s. I said, Dwayne, do you suppose that that had something to do with the fact that it was in the 1790s that Cherokees began to weave their own cloth? It was at that time period Cherokees had begun to grow cotton, and the United States, they had supplied us, pursuant to some treaties, spinning wheels. And I think that's what happened, is that we began to make these things when we got cloth we could make them with. And so that was popular not just with Cherokees, but with all the eastern woodland, southeastern Indians. But after the Civil War, we didn't have anything that was different than what the frontier people were wearing. And so what I tell people when we go out, I said, we put some of this historic stuff on because it honors that generation. They rebuilt the Cherokee Nation after having converted it to a political entity that could survive on the continent, that could go to the United States Supreme Court and win. They'd done all that adapting. At the same time, we invented our own written language. And the guy most noted for that was Sequoia.
So traditionally, turbans were just worn by men. So I think a lot of people, when they see me wearing them, they're like, are you allowed to wear that? I think one of the best responses I've ever heard was a Cherokee man that I know said, Cherokee women do what they want. And I really agree with that. But also, I like the idea of taking something that was traditionally for men and making it a little bit more feminine, making it match a ribbon skirt, So really, I use them just as a fashion accessory. Some people still wear them as a general head covering, especially during the winter. They're nice because they're a heavier fabric to stay warm. And also some people still use them as coverings to wear to ceremonies. I really like the idea of bringing back the turban. That's kind of been a personal goal of mine. I think it takes a special level of bravery to wear them because they are so exotic and different and out there, but also I think that they can be really casual and a nice accessory and an easy way to identify yourself as Cherokee, not just Native American.